Mad World's Coach Sess. I am discussing the upcoming fight between Brent Williams and Addison Hendry at Fight for It 21, Charlotte, North Carolina, Grady Cole Center, July 27th, next weekend. And what I'm here to discuss is the overall effect that each guy is going to have on the other and how they can capitalize whatever that effect is to their advantage. And I want to talk about some of the strong points and weak points of both men, because that's how the other guy's going to capitalize. Now, we need to be very clear. Brent Williams is the favorite in this fight. Brent Williams has more experience. This fight is taking place in Charlotte, North Carolina, Brent's hometown. Brent can almost be described as the the face of Fight for It. You know, being an amateur who's already headlined the card. He is in good standing with promotion. So let's not be silly about that, or else I have to confront Marcelo for playing the biggest joke if we don't recognize the fact that Brent Williams is the favorite in this fight. But Addison is game. He took the fight. He's had adequate time to prepare. He wants to fight. If you've listened to any of the interviews that he's done recently, he is laser focused and he's got it dialed in. This guy's got one thing on his mind, and that is defeating Brent Williams in his pro debut. So that in itself is not as big as a problem as it would seem, but Brent Williams is the favorite going into this fight, so we can't worry about that. I've already said it, that this is a fight where you have to impose your will. If you want the judge's decision, if you want their favor, if you want the audience to get on your side, you're going to have to focus more on being a mixed martial artist who fights for the crowd but not chase the hug. In other words, you're not there for adulation. You're not there for applause. You're not there to get cheers and claps. You're there to perform at a high level, and that's what Addison's going to have to do. He has to use Brent as just merely a person in his way to that high level of performance, and Brent is just his dance partner. If he makes this all about Brent, then he may lose focus. One of the things I paid attention to watching Addison fight sometimes is energy expenditure. We're not talking about a guy who's just getting tired. We're talking about a guy who uses moves that make you tired. Spinning moves. And a lot of these moves, sometimes they don't land. And they look good. They're great. But you got to think like this, Addison. Team Jimmo trains fighters for the UFC. For one championship. For high-level competition. What makes you think that they haven't seen you use spinning moves and high kicks and things of that nature that often miss? They miss more than they land. Okay, and this is a repetitive model, so they prepared themselves for that. So you need to be prepared not to go in and just do things just because you're a little lost in that fight. Go back to the basics: step, jab, combos, move right, move left, all the basics. I'm not going to go over them. You know them. So energy expenditure, you've got to watch it. Because Brent does a pretty good job in pacing himself over the course of the fight. If you watch Brent, he basically has the same output through all the rounds, especially in the MMA fights and kickboxing fights that were non-title. His output pretty much stayed the same from round to round, which was roughly about 30 strikes a round in the kickboxing. Could be a little bit more in the MMA. And only in the championship fights would he have a little bit of a drop-off of about 20% in long fights. But his opponent would be so weakened at that point that it still didn't matter. He would have the advantage by 25%. So Addison, you have to watch your energy expenditure with the flashy moves. Getting tired with the basics is way different than jump moves, spin moves, complicated combos. Stick to the basics and try to wear Brent down through the basics. The location of the fight. Addison, your output drops the more you make contact. The more you're entangled with your opponent, the more your output drops. Even if you're in the dominant position, your output drops off. So that tells me that you're letting your opponents off the hook. Now keep in mind, that's when you were an amateur. Now that you're a pro, you're going to have to land some of these strikes. Think about the historical story of when Randy Couture started grounding and pounding a little bit better. The story goes that Big John McCarthy told Randy, hey man, you're so good at getting guys into these positions, why don't you let your hands go a little bit more? Why don't you ground and pound a little bit more? And when Randy started doing that, he had better results. Even when the guys were able to get back to their feet, Randy was not as afraid of their striking. So Addison, you're going to have to figure this out. A lot of times when you get into grappling, you're either trying to grapple them or you're surviving. And let's talk about the grappling for a while. If we look at it, I don't like to think of this fight as the traditional who has more advantage in the grappling, who has more advantage in the striking and things of that nature. But let's look at it logically. You have tried some submission attempts, but you're hesitant. You're somewhat slow in going for your move, whereas Brent has actually shown that he has can finish, people win in grappling scenarios. He has shown it. If he locks on, he has a higher ratio of when he locks on, goes for a submission versus when you lock on. So with that in mind, you don't want to spend all that time chasing submissions that might be difficult for you to finish. They cost you a lot of energy, especially if it's like a choke and the guy's still able to breathe. Your arms are tired, filled with a lot of blood, and now you've got to return back to your feet. And potentially, depending on where you are, you have to use your hands to either defend or to attack. So keep that in mind. One of the things that Brent, like I said, does so well is when he's grappling, he continues to strike. And by striking, this one wears down the opponent a little bit. That gives Brent more angles of attack. And it also creates openings. So this is a fight not of, who's so better and which strikes or which, who kicks better or who punches better or who grapples better, who gets better takedowns. This is a fight of enforcing of the will, but it's about the style of the fight. Brent has to keep this fight an MMA fight. And you've got to enforce this as a kickboxing fight. So in every range, no matter what range we're talking about, there's a way to keep the fight where you want it. And instead of trying to train all the kicks because you know them, all the combos because you know them, focus more on putting yourself back into position to do the combos, to do the kicks, to do the knees, to do the elbows. Bring it all to bear. And Brent, making this an MMA fight does not mean when you're boxing and Addison shoots that you sprawl. This means keeping him off balance by boxing 1 minute, kneeing and clinching the next, grappling the next, but really enforcing the fight, changing the complexion of the fight almost immediately at will, not waiting for him to catch his bearings. Just make it an MMA fight. Don't go in a rhythm of boxing, kickboxing, grappling, submission. No, break it up. Submission from the side mount, submission against the cage, submission in the open, then knees in the open, knees against the cage, back to boxing, back to kickboxing, back to ground and pound. Just mix it. That's just what's going to make this fight interesting. Brent, you have more experience in the MMA. You have more experience overall. So it's a little silly for you to give this guy a chance to knock you out, because that's the next subject line I have here. The impact player in the fight is Addison Hendry. Brent, you're the favorite. Your hometown. You're the golden boy. But let's not be arrogant and think that your opponent does not bring something to the table. Hendry has a good overhand. And sometimes you can get caught with overhands. And one of the tactics for little guys sometimes is to throw that overhand. All right? So you have to watch out for Addison because he has pop. He's got pop in his kicks. He's got pops in that right hand. So you can't make yourself vulnerable to that attack. You're going to have to stay 100% fully engaged inside of the fight. Now, the one thing that comes down to engagement, Addison, you don't wear it well. When you get tired, you get hurt, people can see it on your face. They can see it. You start backing up. You start moving away. And it's different than stepping back to draw somebody in. When you step back to draw a person in, you're trying to counter them coming in. It's a deliberate trap. You're coming off your amateur career. I don't know what you've been doing in the gym, but if you haven't got rid of that habit of showing it on your face, it's going to leave you vulnerable. Brent, on the other hand, wears it very well. Brent does hide the fact that he's a little bit tired, that he's been hurt. He wears it well. And even when he's covering up, he does a good job of trying to fire back in between combos. Like I said, he wears it a little bit better than you do. So keep that in mind. So the last two categories I have is Addison. For you, you have to use all the tools. In some of your fights in Virginia, you did a really good job with the elbows and the knees. You've got to pace yourself and try to get into that range. Don't spend so much time trying to fight Brent in long range. Get into that range where you can use those elbows and knees. You did a pretty good job with him. Remember, Brent hasn't fought in all these different places as much as you have with those rule sets. So that's what you can use to your advantage. You're technically already a pro. You've been fighting under pro rules more than he has. Now, Brent does have some experience, but you just have more in that regard. So you have to use all the tools and make it a real inside Muay Thai pro rules dirty fight. At least for the purpose of making Brent tired. Brent is really good with his cardio. And then for Brent, the last thing is use all of the games. Again, be deliberate in your attack. You know, when it's time to wrestle in front. When he starts to counter you, you're not trying to wait and see what that counter is going to be. You're not trying to wait and see if he's attacking your leg, if he can sprawl. Assume he's good at it. So what you do is you keep changing the complexion of the game. As I said before, it's all about making this MMA versus kickboxing. You have to just keep using all of the games. You have to take charge. You have to be in charge. You have to be in front. All right. If you play boxing and give him a chance to box, he's going to land something, and it may stun you that he's good at it. If you play jiu-jitsu, then he may be good at it. All right. What you have to do is stay ahead, and the minute he tries to play the game with you, change the name of the game. And that's how you're going to use all the tools. All the games. Addison has to use all the tools in the clinch range. You've got to use all the games everywhere. Now, at the end of the day, the fight that you two are going to be putting on is definitely a very tiring style of fight. But it's so unique in this sense that both of you are so similar in a lot of ways that you have to fight this way. You have to do a little bit more. All right. Think about if you saw the fight last night with Jake Paul and Mike Perry. Mike Perry waited until he was hurt to try and do a little bit more, and then he didn't have the energy. But for what it was and however long it lasted, it was quite entertaining. But that style is a tough style when you have to be busy in the fight. Perry definitely landed some powerful shots that caught Jake Paul's attention, and Paul had to really muster up that testicular fortitude, as they say. Get behind that stick, behind that jab, get behind his movement, and he had to just let his hands go. It comes down to those types of fights where you really, really have to focus not on whether or not I'm winning the fight, but am I hurting my opponent? You've got to stop them with attrition and force. That's the name of this fight. That's the name of this fight. But again, Brent going into this fight is definitely the favorite. So Addison, what you have to do in the course of the fight is what I've said before. You've got to win the hearts, the minds, and the love and the attention of that crowd. You've got to make them see a mixed martial artist who is not here for a paycheck. He's not here for adulation. He is not here for a trophy, a crowd participation. He's not here for anything but to show everyone that he is the very best. You do that, Addison, and that's how you'll make the upset. I am Coach Sess, and you've had words with the Mad Coach.